Hello students, it is July 5th, 2023, the day after July 4th. I'm about to do the video lecture about magazines, the current state, Mad Magazine, the current state of magazines. And increasingly, like newspapers, when we talk about magazines, we talk about the print and the analog hard copy together, because newspapers exist both as print and as digital, and increasingly magazines are becoming brands. Even if the print, excuse me, someone's actually shopping for magazines here. Increasingly, when we talk about magazines, we talk about the print and the online, and many magazines like Sports Illustrated, ESPN, Playboy have become popular brands as well. And even if everything transitions to digital, there are still people who want the hard copy of the magazines for fashion magazines or something like that, and also for comic books. I collect comic books. I actually just bought a couple of Daredevil comic books, and I don't want the online. I want the print. Okay, that's enough of an introduction. Now we're going to do current state of magazines. Video lecture for chapter 7, all about magazines. This is part 2, aka the current stuff. I got this slide directly from the publisher. Okay, they gave me some slides to use as PowerPoint. I've added a lot to them and jazzed them up over the years. But I do want to stress this point because I think this is a very, very important slide. Magazines help to create a pseudo environment where they present an interpretation of reality that is different than reality itself. And when I think about the way women are depicted in fashion magazines, beauty magazines, etc., that's what really comes to mind, that the vision that you see of a person, usually a woman. I mean, they could do Photoshop and computer trickery to male bodies as well, but I think about it when it comes to women. And what I'm going to play right now is this video that I found that kind of shows the extent of what can be done. And this video is a few years old. In fact, this video is several years old. And I'm assuming that digital technology has gotten even better since then. And when you look at the way every single bit of this woman, who's perfectly attractive to begin with, when you look at the way every single part of her body has been manipulated, it does make you wonder, why the heck do we need human beings anyway? Why the heck do we need human beings anyway? So don't fall for the idea that what you see presented in print, online, etc., don't fall for the idea that that's reality and that is some sort of like lofty ideal that you need to live up to, because what you're seeing in the media is not reality. It is a version of reality, but it is not reality. This is current. I mean, it's current as of this recording. This bill was introduced in March 2023 in California. There is a bill that's going to force, or would force, big tech companies to pay for news content. The idea here is that if you are a social media company, some type of website, and you are using content from some print publication, whether that be a newspaper or a magazine, and you are using that content and then selling ads on your own, then you ought to pay a journalism usage fee to help those media outlets survive. I mean, they are, after all, providing the news content that's making you money through advertising. So why not pay the people who are producing that content? And then there's a further provision in the bill that would tell publishers all this money that you're getting needs to go to hire new workers, okay, to save jobs. And here is a possible repercussion if that happens. This already happened. What is this from? What is this news article from? Yeah, this is from June 30th, 2023, just a couple days ago. Google is going to stop linking to publications in Canada because Canada has enacted something like this called the Online News Act in Canada, where Canadian publishers are saying, hey, Google, you got to give us money if you're scraping our content, if you were reusing our content. So Google's very mature response to this is just to stop linking to Canadian publications altogether. Anyway, it's obviously very difficult to keep up with all the ins and outs and constant permutations in publishing, but I did want to let you know that this is something that's going on. Continuing on with the very good news. Kidding. I'm going to talk a little bit about National Geographic. This is a super famous magazine. I mean, I can't stress how successful this magazine has been. Began publishing way back in 1888. At one point, it was published in 40 different languages. This is one of the most famous covers in all of National Geographic. It was known for photography, including photography from around the world. This photograph is from 1985, cover image from 1985. That is a young girl in an Afghan village. And there's definitely something about her face and something about her eyes that's kind of magical. It's kind of a very, very captivating photograph. Anyway, National Geographic, super famous magazine, been around for well over 100 years, published all over the world. And yeah, yeah, National Geographic is laying off the last of its staff writers. They said they're going to stop newsstand sales in 2024. Now, this doesn't mean the magazine's going to go away. They're still going to have content produced. They're going to use freelance writers, and the name is going to live on in some way. I mean, there's all this TV, video, documentary content produced under the National Geographic brand. So it's not going away, but this is another example of a magazine that has sort of become a brand. And even though the original artifact itself, the print magazine, may be going away, it's going to live on as a brand. What else do we have here? Okay, Sports Illustrated. This is the most recent, again, as of this recording, this is the most recent Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. What do swimsuits have to do with sports? Who knows? Okay, the cover models for the 2023 edition of that publication, including Martha Stewart, who is certainly a mature woman, certainly a senior. Yeah, I think she's definitely a senior citizen. Um, Now, you may say, oh, it's very empowering that Sports Illustrated has broken the mold. They've put trans individuals on the cover. They've had plus size models on the cover. Now they've got Martha Stewart on the cover. You might say, oh, that's so empowering. That's so progressive. They're so woke. But you could also say, why are we continuing to objectify women and treat women as if the only value they have is their physical appearance? I don't mind looking at the female form. I'm just saying that, why is this something that we are still doing in 2023, 2024? Why are we still doing this? Anyway, I'm just sharing the news. Just sharing the news. TV Guide continues to be a pretty popular magazine, which is funny because TV Guide is about another form of media, right? TV Guide, back when I was a kid, would actually list what was on television on different channels. Now there's too many outlets, so many streaming options, yada, yada, yada. There's no way they can actually list everything that's going to be on TV. But it still persists. It still persists. And it has been a very, very successful publication. AARP, American Association for Retired People, Retired Persons. Is that what it stands for? I don't know. AARP. Older people, let's say, people of my demographic and above. As soon as you get to a certain age, you're automatically eligible to become a member of AARP, which gives you discount on certain things, and the magazine is going to be sent to your house. It still remains one of the highest circulation magazines out there. And if you want to target that particular demographic, people who might need pharmaceuticals, maybe people who have the money for a second home or something like that, this is just a tremendous, tremendous platform for reaching those individuals. The screenshot that I put right here is the editorial calendar showing you what's coming up. What's going to be coming up in the future. It's for advertisers. Hey, look, for the October, November issue is going to be all about medical breakthroughs. If you've got something you want to advertise. Anyway, AARP remains a very, very popular publication. Now, what I'm going to show you here for the rest of the lecture are some slides from the Magazine Media Fact Book put out by the Association of Magazine Media. I think that's what they're called. Anyway, the purpose of this publication, the one you're looking at right now, is to convince you as a potential advertiser that magazines are the best form of media that's out there. Okay, you have to remember now and recall that the different media industries are in competition with one another to a very, very real degree, especially when it comes to advertising dollars. So I'm not saying I am not saying that the charts and graphs in this presentation that I'm going to, excerpt for you are lying. I'm just saying that magazine publishers want to present the best possible situation to potential advertisers so that you continue to advertise in magazines as opposed to advertising on Instagram, advertising on YouTube, advertising on billboards, TV, podcasts, all the other different ways you could have to get your advertising message out there. So take everything with a grain of salt that magazine publishers are telling you they are the greatest form of media that there is. And every form of media, every trade organization, whether it's video games, radio, TV, film, whatever, everyone's going to tell you that they're the greatest thing out there. So magazines doing the same thing. Okay, now this is a little bit old, but this was the current stuff that they put in the 2022 magazine fact book. They're showing you circulation for, on the left, we have 2020. On the right, we have 2021. They're showing you total audience figures, and kind of surprising to me, I'm a little bit surprised by that thing on the right, that the biggest category where you find the audience is on the mobile web versions of the magazines. 42% of the audience is looking at that version. Only 39% is looking at a print or a digital edition. And then you have some people looking at a web only version or a video only version, but the mobile web version of the product is actually where the bulk of the audience is. So if you're asked, where does most of the audience come from for magazines? Mobile web. Now, here's where we get into that kind of persuasive messaging that I just talked about. The magazine publishers are trying to convince advertisers that traditional media, which would include good old-fashioned print magazines, are trusted. People trust traditional media more than they trust social media. And we also have the very, very well-known and very, very standard metric that publications grow over time when it comes to their audience. Okay, this chart is showing you weeklies versus monthlies. The longer something is out, maybe it's sitting on a coffee table, maybe it's sitting in a doctor's office, maybe it's sitting in some type of retail establishment. If it's sitting out over time, the audience is going to grow. If you did some sort of advertising on TV, it's kind of like a one-shot deal. Maybe people are going to watch the ad if they DVR the show and are watching it back later, maybe not. But something in print, the audience is going to grow over time. That's a selling point and advantage of print. Now you have, I like this too. When you ask people age 18 to 49, which is the prime demographic, advertisers like to advertise to people aged 18 to 49. We will talk about that more. When you talk to these group of people, 57% of them feel that ads in magazines fit well with the content, more so than ads on TV or ads in some sort of digital form of media. People think the ads fit, which totally makes sense. If I'm reading a magazine all about cats, for example, or dogs or some type of pet, and then there's going to be ads for cat food or cat medicine or dog medicine or whatever. Is there such a thing as dog medicine? Anyway, the ads are going to fit because you've got a very, very specific audience, and you know that your audience is interested in that thing that you're talking about. And we have magazine readers are more receptive to ads than visitors of websites or TV viewers. Okay, the different images here, the different sort of colored bars here. Magazine is green. Do you find ads inspirational? Do you find them trustworthy? Do you find them life enhancing? And whatever scale that they're using here, I don't know what scale they're using to determine these numbers, but it pretty clearly gives the impression that magazines are the place to be if you want to advertise. People like ads in magazines more so than other forms of media. And we have, now this is where we're starting to get down to where the rubber meets the road. Are the ads actually effective? Are the ads actually effective? Will people actually take action? And the black shows, the sort of black bar shows people who've taken some sort of action. If the ad appears in a magazine and on the magazine website, so we've got sort of the traditional ad and also a digital ad, it's more effective than simply putting an ad in a magazine, doing both. That's what they're telling you, that ads are more effective when there's some type of online ad as well as an ad in a magazine. People are more likely to take action. And I love this one. Nearly 3/4 of magazine readers love the touch and feel of print. Okay. And for people under the age 35, 58% of those people. Oh, and look, we've gotten, this must be sort of average income, right? Average income. Ah, people who income is more than 75, which is 75,000 seems like a lot of money, but San Diego is so absurdly expensive. You know, that's really not that much money in San Diego. Sorry, I'm just sorry to tell you, that's really not that much money in San Diego. We live in a very, very expensive place with a very high sunshine tax. Anyway, not to be depressing. Uh, People like the touch and feel of the print product. I've already established that comic books. I'm not even gonna look at an online comic book. Get out of here. I'm not even gonna look at an online comic book. That's insane. An old an old comic book that I could actually open up smells like 1968. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And look, people who make more money like magazines, and we know advertisers like people with more money. Okay, now this we're not going to talk about simply copies of a magazine in circulation because people can look at something online as well. But when you look at the average monthly audience, and again, you got to add 3 zeros to this, AARP is at the top. Okay. When you look at the print and digital editions, that would be, is that 36 million? That seems pretty high. Okay, let's go for it. That's what they're saying, 36 million. Add some zeros right here. Then we got People, Better Homes and Gardens, National Geographic, Reader's Digest. Okay. Oh, and then we got Sports Illustrated over here. This is the average monthly audience. According to the magazine industry, AARP has the largest monthly audience when you look at print and digital editions. However, when you look at all forms of distribution, including something that's just like a mobile version on your phone or video content that's coming out, People, it is now People, which is an entertainment oriented magazine. So, depending upon the way the question is worded or the question is phrased, what's the most popular magazine in the United States? What's the most popular magazine in the United States? Well, when you look at only print and digital editions, it's going to be AARP. When you look at all forms of media, it's going to be People. All right. I'm going to put this information in the lecture notes. That's it. Done. Hope I did a good job.